We've been using the natural plants that are planted around here. So we've used some of those to create these molds for what's kind of like an artificial fossil pattern. I'll be pulling these plants out today and deconstructing the mold, and we'll take a look at how they came out. We'll be laying those out just in front of the entryway we created around the back of the house here.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
In the previous episode, we continued the rehabilitation of this back door entryway. I used recycled hollow concrete block as pavers to create a pathway leading up to the stone step we'd built earlier. I used a dry concrete base flattened out with a wooden screeder that the pavers could be laid flat on. Once the entire pathway was wet down, the pavers would be locked in place. I also filled all the gaps in the pavers with a textured, coloured, gravelly fill to help create a rustic look for our recycled hollow block. My client wanted to extend the pathway with some existing 400mm pavers she'd used in the same place previously.
We've got our handmade custom pavers mixed with the store-bought pavers. We've got 8 of these store-bought ones mixed with 6 of these ones we made ourselves. We had a lot of fun making those with the local plants in this beautiful garden that's on this property. It creates an artificial fossil in this concrete. I added some pigment, so these are sandstone colour. Got a couple of red ones. I filled all the gaps with crushed bluestone. This is going to help keep these stable because they're just laid on normal sand. It came out really nice.
In this episode, I'll take you through the process of how we created our artificial plant fossils in 400mm concrete pavers. One of my concrete form panels will make a good base to construct the mould. I'm using my saw to square one end of it up. We want these pavers to come out dead square so they match the pre-existing factory pavers. The resident Dachshund Gus likes to get involved when he hears some activity out the front of the house. The form panel is made out of plywood backed with a 2x4 frame, so it'll be strong enough to support the concrete when we pour the moulds for our 400mm pavers. The pre-existing pavers are 40mm thick, so I'm setting the edge of our mould to 45mm to give me a bit of extra play. I need the mould to be easy to pull apart and reassemble, as we'll be doing a couple of castings to get the amount of pavers we need. I'm constructing it with 2 main side rails with a couple of pieces in the middle to divide up the 3 pavers.
Even if you've never flown before, you can take a chance and try once more. Don't let your worries weigh you down, down, down. You can still take flight, although you're earthbound.
My mould's now complete and ready to make 3 pavers at a time. I use my spirit level to check that it's completely level and use a few scrap pieces of plywood to chock it up in place. I'm making a specialised concrete mix for these pavers, starting with my basic gravel and sand mix. After adding a little bit of water, I add the general purpose cement, being careful to add it slowly so it has time to mix and bind with the gravel and sand. I add mortar mix to give it a smoother texture and a shovel load of rapid set to help speed up the curing process. I add the rest to the gravel and sand mix and water it down to get a smooth consistency, then start adding the pigment. I just keep adding pigment until I get the colour I like by eye. I give the mix some time to blend thoroughly with all the different ingredients. Once it's thoroughly mixed, I dump it into one of my tubs, ready to add the concrete into our mould. My client has carefully selected and laid out all the leaves ready for our process.
Stuck in the dust of the life that you found, with nowhere to go, no higher ground. Even if you never flown before, you can take a chance and try once more. Don't let your worries weigh you down, down, down. You can still take flight, although you're earthbound.
Our final step is to carefully push leaves and flowers into the top of the pavers. This way, when we check the moulds later, we'll have two choices for each paver. We need to add the leaves and flowers whilst the concrete's still soft. The quickcrete I added into our mix speeds the whole drying process up, so we have to work carefully but also quickly. The reason I added the quickcrete was so I could pop these pavers out the next day and set another batch. By peeling some of our leaves off and feeling the concrete underneath, I can tell it's hard enough for us to pull our pavers out of our mould. Most of the leaves are peeling straight out of the concrete. For some of them I have to use a paint scraper to help separate them from the surface.
Standing underneath the lights, look into each other's eyes. Tired snowflakes are coming down, collapse into water when they hit the ground.
After checking that Gus's paw prints came out okay, I start deconstructing our mould. I carefully remove the dozen screws we used, as I'll have to reassemble this for our second batch of pavers.
I can promise you're the only thing I see. Hold my hand and hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream.
The paver came out of the mould nicely. The bottom side of the paver where we poured concrete over the top of the leaves is going to take a little extra work to dig the leaves out. The paint scraper helps me get underneath the leaf and get it started, and then they pull out relatively easily.
A lonely wind is passing by, tries to carry all the whispers that it finds. The walls are listening when we talk, making echoes as we walk. There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only we can see. Hold my hand and hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream.
I lightly grind both sides of the paver with a diamond bit on my grinder, and then bevel the edges so it matches the factory pavers.
Standing underneath the lights, look into each other's eyes. There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only we can see.
Yesterday I pulled out our first batch, which is sitting over here drying in the sun, and I poured out a couple more. These are actually sandstone colour on the bottom and red brick on top, so we'll have the option to use them one way or the other when we lay out our pattern. We've been using the natural plants that are planted around here, My customer's an avid gardener and she's planted all these amazing Australian native plants all through this large 2-acre garden. So I've used some of those to create these molds for what's kind of like an artificial fossil pattern you end up on your concrete. I'll be pulling these plants out today and deconstructing the mold, and we'll take a look at how they came out. We'll be laying those out just in front of the entryway we created around the back of the house here. So let's pull this mold apart. It's always exciting when you pull apart a concrete mold and see how things have turned out.
Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream. Quiet voices in the night. Time is running out of sight. A lonely wind is passing by. Tries to carry all the whispers down the The walls are listening when we talk, making echoes as we walk. There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only we can see. Hold my hand and hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away.
Our second batch of pavers has come out a little different from the first batch. When I poured the sandstone coloured concrete on the bottom of the mould, it was probably too wet for the process, so the leaves have ended up buried deeper in the concrete. I'm going to use my grinder to take off a few mil, then I can dig them out with my paint scraper and chisel. I take my time with this process, working slowly and carefully, trying not to scratch the leaf imprint on the concrete. It's only the edges of the leaves that are trapped in the concrete. So by using my chisel to chip away at the edges, the leaves eventually peel out. The advantage of having the leaves set this deep in the concrete is there'll be no risk of them being ground out by the foot traffic as people walk on these pavers over the years.
Standing underneath the lights, we look into each other's eyes. Tired snowflakes are coming down, collapse into water when they hit the ground. I hear the sound of empty streets. Yesterday has gone to sleep, so all that's left is you and me. I can promise you're the only thing I see. Hear the words I say. Close your eyes and let us fade away. Build a secret place for you and me. Let our minds be caught up in a dream.
With all the custom pavers set solid and cleaned up, we're ready to start laying them at the entryway. The location of the property I'm working on is right next to the beach. The soil is mostly sand, so it makes a reasonable surface to lay pavers directly on without any kind of foundation. I use my rake to get the surface to the correct height. I need to leave 40 mil for the thickness of the pavers. I temporarily place one of the pavers in the corner to test the height of the sand. When I'm satisfied the sand is at the correct height, I use a 2x4 to compact and smooth the sand out in preparation for us laying our pavers on top. I work the entire area of the pathway, removing any bumps and filling any voids with my trowel as I go. I start the process by laying the first paver in the top right corner and working my way across. This way I won't have to walk on the pavers I've laid. I use my trowel to make any adjustments to the height of the sand, so each paver sits flat to the one next to it.
Hey darling, Can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city light. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city, let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand.
When I'm finished laying all the pavers flat, I do one last double check on the gaps between them and make sure they're all lined up and consistent. I'm using ground bluestone to fill in between the pavers, as that's what we used on the previous pathway we constructed. It'll help add an element of stability for these pavers laid directly on sand. After sweeping all the bluestone into our gaps, I wet the whole thing down to help solidify it into the ground.
Leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city, let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand.
That concludes the custom-made pavers laid on sand. Join me in the next episode as we move on to some carpentry to complete the rebuild of the awning that covers the back door over our paving projects.
Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city, let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand. Hey darling, I love it when it's me and you, on the road with a couple of tunes in a car for two. Hey darling, you know we're gonna have a really good time, driving in the middle of the night when the stars are bright. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city, let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand.
This rain's really setting in, so we're going to take a break, come back tomorrow and finish the rest of the framing.
Thanks for joining me this week in my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.